Welcome to part 3 of my YFZ addiction. In the last video we left off with an 8-hour round trip ending with me arriving home at midnight with a seemingly decent 2004 450 for $1,000. Once I had a minute to look it over in daylight, it did not look bad at all. It was dirty, with some torn decals but no rips in the plastic. It had some rust on the shocks and muffler and on a few of the bolts. The seat was torn and needed some front wheel bearings, probably a new battery, but it fired up great and had no issues running. And the carburetor seemed to be in pretty good shape after all. Full disclosure, after it ran for the first few minutes or so it died and I could not get it to start again. After finally getting frustrated and taking a break, or temporarily giving up to eat lunch, I had an epiphany. I checked the gas tank and sure enough it was empty. Turns out it's nearly impossible for ATVs to run without gas. Back to the story. I washed it down thoroughly but carefully, changed the oil and filter, dropped in a new battery from batterysharks.com, and had a local shop near my house install new wheel bearings, ball joints, and A-arm bushings. I added a set of locking hand grips and it seemed ready for a good trail test ride. I did notice that the chain was a little loose, but thought I'd get to that later. Well, actually I forgot about it. I believe that's called foreshadowing in the movies. I finally came across a nice Saturday forecast with no other plans or responsibilities. Not really wanting to take the quad out for its first trail ride solo, I was able to talk a friend of mine who had never ridden ATVs to go with me. He would take the Trailblazer, the one with the brand new lug nuts. We loaded up the ATVs and headed to Brushy Mountain Motorsports Park. We got our passes, suited up and unloaded, turned on the GoPro, and headed out to ride. We rode at a fairly relaxed pace since this was my friend's first time out. I keep the Trailblazer around as an extra ATV for friends and family. It's not particularly fast, but it isn't tippy, and it's easy to ride with an automatic transmission and single brake leather for both brakes, and it cost all of $700. I immediately remembered why I loved the YFZ. The quad was quick and responsive. It had great mid-range power, but could still be revved out. I was hitting jumps and power sliding with a grin on my face, and most importantly, it was comfortable. I thought how lucky I was that I got back into YFZs for only $1,000 plus a little extra. We rode for around 2 hours with zero issues and had a great time. We'd stopped for lunch and decided to ride for about 30 more minutes, and those 30 minutes were up. As we came back to the truck, I remember thinking that it was a successful day. Both machines had held up, and we had zero incidents or accidents, even with the new rider. But I hadn't really opened the ATV up for an extended time. I'd been taking it fairly easily, so I didn't get too far ahead of my buddy. Starting thinking I'd like to get one more quick loop in and really see what it would do. I asked my friend if he wanted to do one last quick trip. There's a great trail there, Trail 2. It takes about 10 minutes to go through. Has a few easy hill climbs, a lot of jumps, and some nice sweeping turns. It's a perfect trail for one last fast pass. My friend agreed and off we went. As soon as the trail opened up, so did I. I was full blast and having a ball, and the YFZ handled everything with ease. At one point I realized I was getting pretty far ahead of my friend, so I pulled over to wait. As I was sitting, 3 guys on 2-stroke motocross bikes came by, and then my friend came into sight shortly after. I decided I'd try to catch the motocross bikes, and I really got on it. About a minute in, I caught the riders and then backed off. As I was coming down a stretch of hill, I noticed that when I gave it throttle, nothing was happening, which is never good. I pulled over and killed the motor. Looked down, and of course the chain had broken. The loose chain I forgot to address and decided it could probably wait. Well, I was wrong. The footage of all this looks backwards because I'd been recording my friend from reverse while riding ahead. I used that footage to make another video, so at least it served a purpose. My friend caught up and I explained what happened. We were maybe 5 minutes from the parking lot, so I told him to ride to the truck and get the tow rope. I know it would be smart to keep a tow rope with you, and I have one with my Can-Am, but there's not really a good place to carry one on either quad we had that day, and besides, that makes too much sense. The Trailblazer he was riding is sound overall, but like most older quads, it has a few issues. The handlebar switch for the start button and headlights is broken, so there's no electric start. And the switch is surprisingly expensive to replace for a $700 quad. Luckily, Polaris made redundant pull starters for a while, and the pull starter is easy to use. However, the trick with a pull starter is you can only pull so far. The rope has a limit. And my friend exceeded that limit, and the rope came out of the ATV and into his hand. He looked back at me and asked, "Now what do we do?" The Polaris is an automatic, so push starting was not an option, and we did not have any tools. We were on the trail with 2 of 2 ATVs broken. A lot happened on that last ride. I knew most of what was left was downhill, so I told my friend we may be able to coast out to the parking lot. I put the broken chain under his seat, put the YFZ in neutral, and with a good running start was off. I'm not sure if you've ever coasted on an ATV in neutral going downhill, but it's actually pretty fun. I have unfortunately had practice, as the same thing happened to my first Z400 at Brown Mountain. The chain broke, and I was with a friend on a motorcycle, so towing was not an option. Luckily, we were mostly downhill, and I coasted out like it was my job. It's actually pretty fun to see how fast you can go, and it's kind of cool enjoying going fast in the woods in silence. It reminds me of doing luge or bobsledding in the Olympics, a new sport, ATV coasting. I got up enough speed to coast all the way out of the trail, even catching air a few times on some jumps. I rolled all the way to my trailer's loading ramps. My friend made it out a bit behind me, but still successful. He got the silver medal. He asked me if the case had broken. I couldn't see any cracks, and I didn't see any oil, so I reported that I didn't think so. We pushed the non-running ATVs on the trailer, loaded up, and headed back home to unload and push everything back into the building. The Polaris was easily fixed by running the rope back through the pull starter and tying a knot. I enlisted my girlfriend Natalie's help because there's a reason I failed scissors in kindergarten. But easy fix. Turns out I wouldn't be so lucky with the YFZ. I ordered a new chain and sprockets and waited for their arrival. While waiting, I gave the YFZ a good bath to get the dirt off and get a clear view of the situation. After washing the quad, I fired it up to see what would happen. It idled normally for a few seconds, but then I noticed oil dripping out of the bottom of the case, or so I thought. It was hard to tell the exact location because of the OEM cover over the front sprocket. It's only held on by 2 screws, so that seemed easy enough to remove. Nope. I don't know why any manufacturer uses screws in a place where things can get really warm. Small screws love to strip out, especially on the bottom of carburetors I've found, but now I can include sprocket covers. I tried to remove the screws with a larger screwdriver and they stripped out more. Then I tried using an easy out and that just dug further into the bolt. They were in. I finally just took a pair of channel locks and ripped the plastic chain guard off. Why not at this point? Upon close inspection, I found a nice hairline crack about 2 inches long on the case. Again, I'm familiar with broken cases by chains and figured JB Weld would cover this. That stuff is cheap and can work miracles. I cleaned the case with degreaser and slathered JB Weld from the top of the case to the bottom along the hairline. Then let it sit overnight. Next evening after work, I pulled into the garage, walked over to the YFZ, and decided it was time to test it. I started the motor and for a few seconds I felt relief. And then I saw it. Oil oozing out of where the clutch goes into the case. 4 little words come to mind. Lots of them. I decided to do some research and confirmed what I suspected. This would require a new case, no way around it. Good job, Yamaha. Now what? To be continued.